Today from the global lane, India's COVID-19 health crisis of epic proportions. Is technology the way out?
Vaccinations are a technology, and unfortunately, Indians are not getting access to those vaccines.
Darkside hackers cause fuel shortages and long gas lines. Are more cyber attacks in America's future?
It's almost a guarantee that this is going to be the new trend.
Millions still jobless. How to bounce back after the shutdowns.
We can't have $40,000 a year on unemployment benefits.
And the pastor who was fired for preaching biblical truth. And it's all right here on the global lane. It seems that death and misery are everywhere in India, as 120 people per day contract the COVID-19 virus. Hospital bed and oxygen shortages are adding to the suffering. To date, more than 250,000 Indians have died. 20 million people have been infected, 7 million in the last month alone. That makes it the worst outbreak in the world. So what now? And could this second deadly wave have been avoided? Well, joining us is technology futurist, inventor, speaker, and author Ian Khan. Mr. Khan, thank you for joining us. Our heart breaks, of course, for India. And it seemed that people were doing better, and then this deadly second wave. Why has it happened?
I think a lot of this unfortunate event that's occurring in India right now, a lot of it has to do with misinformation, with not keeping your public informed on what is to come. And that, I think, the dissemination of information is the biggest challenge that has hit India. And as a result, it's facing a health crisis of epic proportions.
Well, I've visited India quite a few times. I've witnessed unsanitary conditions, poor hygiene in many slums and villages there. How difficult is it for people to stay healthy, clean, avoid infection when they don't even have clean water or access to quality health care?
That's a very good point. And a big challenge with India is that it's a very big country with a lot of people, and more than 1 billion people live in India. Many cities are overcrowded. Many cities have a lot of traffic. People live in congested areas, in congested buildings. And you will find this in major cities as well as smaller metropolitan cities. And I've spent about 20 years in India, living across different parts of the world and visiting India many, many more times. That's one of the problems. The second problem is access to healthcare, access to fresh water, access to clean water. So compound that with a virus, the pandemic that we have right now worldwide, that can spread in congested places, and it can spread if you're not taking care of, the basic PPE, washing your hands, masking yourself. It has just compounded into the situation that we have right now. If you look at mainstream media that's coming out of India right now, the situation is pretty bad, and you see people still not masking, still not following protocol. And on top of that, the response from the government is very weak, and it's just adding fuel to the fire.
And you often talk about technology and how it can help us. So what can be done for India to help the country save lives, overcome this coronavirus nightmare? Is vaccination enough?
Absolutely. So in terms of technology, vaccinations are a technology too, right? We have to oversimplify it right now. Now, COVID-19 vaccines have come up as a result of really hard work that some people have done, researchers have done, and they've come out with this vaccine in a record amount of time. India is a country that's producing the maximum number of vaccines today, and unfortunately, Indians are not getting access to those vaccines. So India needs to invest in logistics. They need to invest in production capacity of these vaccines and give incentives and give whatever vaccine manufacturers need in India to produce more of these vaccines. The logistics sector is suffering in India, and we've seen that with the transportation of oxygen, the lack of oxygen, and thereof, that transportation is a big, big hurdle right now.
What do you see happening with technology to help change India for the better in the future?
Great question. So in terms of technology, the pandemic, India, I think the entire world is facing this crisis. And some of the things that are coming out of this pandemic are the usage of, say, vaccine passports. These are digital passports that we'll be able to use to track if we've had a vaccine or not. This could open up global economies. It could open the travel industry, trade, And we could see a new normal emerging out of this. COVID-19 vaccines would potentially be backed by blockchain technology, which can guarantee the accuracy of this information that's on people's potentially on cell phones or apps. And so for that reason, blockchain can really add a lot of value. We're also looking at different technologies such as artificial intelligence that can analyze data that's collected from different places, let's say in India or where an outbreak is, and help process that information faster so that a predictive model can emerge out of that. And you can literally predict where a breakout might be happening or where it's potentially going away. There are many, many different things that technology can bring through automation, through securing transactions, through securing data, and living in the era of where information privacy is prime. I think we have to capitalize on some of these technologies.
Okay, futurist Ian Khan, it's a pleasure, sir. Thank you for providing your unique insights today.
Thanks for having me.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Darkside, a criminal computer hacking gang, is claiming responsibility for this week's cyber attack on the Colonial Pipeline. The group, based in Russia, suggests it never meant to cripple American society, just make money through extortion, cyber ransom. The attack caused temporary fuel shortages and long lines at gasoline stations from Virginia to Florida. Here to provide some insights on this cyber attack and what we can do to prevent another one is former CIA hacker, cybersecurity commissioner to the Obama administration, and advisor to Bill Gates, Eric Cole. Mr. Cole is author of the soon-to-be-released book, Cyber Crisis, Protecting Your Business from Real Threats in the Virtual World. Eric, it's so good to connect with you. So first, what can you tell us about this group Darkside, and how was it they were able to actually cripple the eastern U.S. fuel supply?
Darkside is an entity based out of Russia that have really commercialized cyber hacking. They've been around for about 3 years, and prior to this attack, they were focused on small to medium-sized organizations. So if you look at 2019, 2020, they would go after companies for ransoms of approximately $100,000. They would do 8 to 10 a month. So they were generating about $12 million a year. This month, they upped the ante where now they're going after much larger organizations and asking for ransoms between $1 to $3 million. And unfortunately, in this case, this was a preventable attack. From what we know about Colonial, they had older systems that weren't kept up to date and was fairly easy for the adversary to break in and compromise.
So, Eric, this really demonstrates the vulnerability of the U.S. energy grid to terrorists or hackers who are simply trying to extort money. So how likely is another cyber attack like this one, and why?
It's almost a guarantee that this is going to be the new trend because a couple factors at place. One, it looks like Colonial is going to pay the ransom. They said that they're going to be up and running by end of the week, and the only possible way that could happen is if they pay the ransom. And the problem with this is once one entity pays a multi-million-dollar ransom, every other hacking group knows that other companies are going to pay. So this is now the new norm. And I wish I could say that Colonial had weaker security than anyone else. But the problems that we saw with Colonial of systems that were outdated and operational systems directly accessible from the internet is present in most of the critical infrastructure across the United States. This is a problem we knew about for years and unfortunately has gone ignored.
And it's like caving to terrorists. Once you do it, they just keep on doing it, right? And President Biden says he intends to talk to Russian President Putin about the attack. If the Russian government was not responsible for this, then what can Putin do about Darkside? Anything?
There's not really a lot that can be done. And unfortunately, even though no one's saying it, this is a fallout from the U.S. pressing sanctions against Russia approximately 4 to 5 weeks ago, because January of this year, Putin was telling Russian criminal elements basically lay off of the United States. We have a new president. We're trying to work on relationships, and you need to minimize that. So he was trying to put pressure on these entities. Then once the sanctions came out where Russian government was blamed, Putin pretty much stepped back and said, game on. And he told companies, listen, I'm not going to sort of restrict you from anything. And then now we see this increase. So I'm hoping that President Biden's conversation with Putin is going to be, hey, can we sort of play together nicely, and can you help us and we help you? Because clearly sanctions didn't work. So maybe some political agendas will actually have a better job of minimizing or reducing these attacks coming from Russia.
And within days of the supply chain cyber attack against SolarWinds last year, many people were quick to accuse Russia of that responsibility. But some experts I've talked to say it was actually the Chinese. So how great is the cyber threat from China?
When you're really ranking sophistication of attacks, China is definitely number one. They have a lot more focused effort and energy and more sophisticated. However, what we tend to see from China is more intellectual theft and intellectual property. So the SolarWinds, where they were trying to get into government systems and steal information, in my experience and expertise, actually looked and felt a lot more like China than Russia. Russia is definitely much more monetarily driven, like ransomware attacks. Colonial definitely has Russian attackers written all over it.
And finally, you worked at the CIA, so I'm sure you're familiar with the saying in D.C., never let a good crisis go to waste. So the timing of this crisis is interesting. It may likely play right into the hands of politicians who are trying to advance trillions of dollars in new spending on U.S. infrastructure. But I'm sure you believe there's some steps that can be taken to protect systems at a much cheaper cost. What can be done?
So first thing that can be done is any operational systems, what we call operational technology that runs pipelines or critical infrastructure, those should never be connected to the internet. And if you go back 2 or 3 years ago, that was the case. But because of the pandemic and working from home, they needed to allow access for more people. So they started interconnecting these systems, which created that vulnerability. However, we have to step back and realize a lot of the infrastructure that's being used to run these companies are 20 to 30 years old. So I actually think that if these lawmakers want to get their bill passed, they need to add the word cyber before infrastructure. Because to me, spending $2 trillion on roads and bridges, maybe not. Spending $2 trillion on cyber infrastructure and security definitely would make sense based on all the vulnerabilities that are present in our critical infrastructure today.
Okay, you're sounding like a futurist there. Eric Cole, cybersecurity expert, author of the book Cyber Crisis, Protecting Your Business from Real Threats in the Virtual World, available starting June 1st, right?
June 1st is the date. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing your time and insights, Eric.
My pleasure.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Gasoline shortages and cars lined up at the pump. Disappointing jobs numbers and rising inflation. A harbinger for summer 2021? Is the robust economic bounce back stalling? Or was April's slowing of the economy just a momentary blip? Well, joining us to provide some insights on what to expect is Financial Issues national TV and radio host Dan Celia. Dan, it's always good to see you. So first, I've got to ask, what's going on with gasoline prices and these fuel shortages? Americans are paying about $1 more on average per gallon than they did 1 year ago, and 50 cents more since January 1st. Is it just a matter of supply and demand because of the Colonial Pipeline cyber hack, or what do you think?
You know, it's demand primarily, or the concern for a lack of demand. They're trying to keep a balance. The pumps aren't all working. They don't have that many rigs working. So they still are holding the line on that a little bit. Prices have gone up normally because of that. We're headed into a busy summer season. And then we get the Colonial Pipeline issue, which really isn't an issue just yet, though there are many gas stations, I'm sure, in a lot of different areas using that as a little bit of an excuse to get some prices up maybe. But the Colonial Pipeline, they've got some of the pipeline up and running right now, and they're expecting by Friday to have it resolved. And they had about a 4-day supply.
And beyond gasoline, Dan, consumers are now paying more for their groceries and other items. So do you expect inflation to continue to rise or cool off?
Oh, I think inflation is going to continue to rise throughout the year, Gary. At the end of this year, I would be surprised if we're not at least 3% or better on inflation. It's going to rise very, very quickly, and I think it's going to continue to go up through the first half of next year, and then it's going to be very iffy, because if they don't get it under control now, and it gets all the way past the first quarter of next year, then they could have a real problem on their hands. And I say I'm talking about the Federal Reserve, in trying to get that in check.
And the March report, of course, was good. Economic growth of 6.5% expected for the year. A big jump in jobs. We thought the economy was bouncing back, taking off, but now for April, only about 250,000 jobs were added. 1 million were expected. What's going on, Dan?
it's all about unemployment. And if the federal government doesn't stop with the subsidy on unemployment, we already have several states, Montana, Mississippi, a couple others that saying they're stopping theirs. They've got to incentivize now people to go back to work. And that's all that we need to do. That is the problem. That's why we had such a poor job numbers, because they just can't seem to incentivize people to get back to work, but they got to stop all the unemployment. That'll do it. That'll help that in dramatic fashion. I don't think it's going to do a lot for inflation, not even for gasoline prices, but it's going to certainly help the economy a little bit.
Well, I saw a report that jobless people in the state of Washington are earning on average more than $41,000 annually in unemployment benefits. Other states in the low to mid $30,000 range. I guess it pays to stay home, or maybe this is happening because many parents are still being forced to stay home with their children because classrooms in many places remain shut. So what do we have to do, Dan, to experience lasting, sustained economic growth?
Well, first of all, we have to have real economic growth. Right now, what we are doing, we saw this GDP number that was pretty amazing. That's meaningless compared to the fact that we had almost a year with no GDP growth. So there's a lot of, we can count everything that we're seeing. You know, we might as well throw that into 2020. Because it's going to be a while before we just get caught up to some sort of normal average on a monthly basis in GDP growth. So we've got, in order to have sustainable growth, we've got to have people working, we've got to have companies opening up and people spending money. And if people are going to spend money, they got to have jobs. They got to get back to work. We can't have $40,000 a year on unemployment benefits. So we've got to see real productivity, real growth, real people getting back to work and earning. But here's the problem, Gary. The window is short. It's only open for a short amount of time. If we don't take advantage of the window to create growth and productivity now by getting people back to work to fill those 8.2 million jobs that are open, that we're going to reach a point where it's too late, because we're going to see inflation come in, and who knows what's going to happen with pandemic, and we're going to see more and more people dependent upon the government, creating more and more problems. And now we've got business sentiment, not consumer sentiment, but then we'll have business sentiment discouraged and really struggling to want to spend money to get people hired.
Okay, it's all about productivity and getting people back to work. Dan Celia, financial issues expert extraordinaire, national radio and TV host. Thank you, Dan, for being with us again. We appreciate you.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary, or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Leftists pushing woke culture are at it again, this time in the United Kingdom. A chaplain at a Christian boarding school is taking legal action after he was fired in 2018 for telling students they should make up their own minds about the LGBTQ agenda. Administrators at Trent College near Derbyshire, England, imposed an LGBT-inclusive, quote, educate and celebrate curriculum at the school. Teachers were instructed on how to, quote, embed gender, gender identity, and sexual orientation into the fabric of the school. Chaplain Reverend Bernard Randall says he became alarmed when he learned staff were urged to chant "smash heteronormativity" during training sessions. So the 48-year-old chaplain preached a sermon offering a biblical view of gender identity and same-sex relationships. Imagine that happening at a Christian school. Wow. His sermon talked about showing love and respect for people with differing views. And then someone reported Chaplain Randall to Prevent. That's a British authority that deals with terrorism threats.
I was thinking, I'm never going to work again because I've been accused of being a terrorist. This is the sermon I gave in June 2018. But remember that religious belief is just as protected in law as sexual orientation. And no one has the right to discriminate against you or be abusive towards you. I couldn't comprehend how I'd done anything so wrong that I needed to be suspended. Ruffled a few feathers, maybe, but then as a Christian minister, sometimes that's your job. No one should be discriminated against simply for who he or she is. There was not a word of violence. I wasn't stirring up anything except respect. Respect people you disagree with. Love your neighbour. And the fact that in this day and age, a sermon should be deemed effectively blasphemous by other people. It would just never have occurred to me before this happened that that could be something that would happen in 21st century Britain, which I thought was a liberal, tolerant society.
Liberal and tolerant? Not in England, folks. If you disagree with the leftist woke crowd and refuse to celebrate their choices, you get fired, even from a Christian school. This reminds me of communist China, where the sermons of pastors are monitored and Christians are persecuted for not embracing the government's atheistic ideology. And if you think this anti-Christian wokeism is staying in the UK, you're mistaken. It's starting to happen right here in America. But if I remember history correctly, didn't we rise up and fight against oppressive British practices? Thank God we won that war. And we shall win the cultural war. But for that to happen, we must reject this wokeism nonsense, pray, and sincerely return to the Judeo-Christian ethics that have caused our Creator to bless us, those godly ideas and practices that have made our nation great. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Watch for us on the CBN News Channel, social media, and our broadcast affiliates. And until next time, be blessed.